We're excited to do, this is our first ever teacher talk with Sullivan Middle School teacher, Amy Polanowski. And Amy's actually used Learning Blade in multiple states. And so we're really just excited to hear Amy's story and to ask questions to Amy. So Sarah, feel free to ask questions once we get going. Okay. And in particular, this teacher talk, we're going to start by highlighting a resource called Learning Blade Backpack. So Amy, thank you so much for your willingness to always be part of the Learning Blade family and sharing your story in Learning Blade. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you teach, where you teach, what grade you teach, and then we'll get into the backpack in a second.
Okay, so my name's Amy Polanowski. I teach at Sullivan Middle School. I currently teach every single 8th grader for a career class. Our counselors are a little overwhelmed with all of the stuff going on. And so they kind of gave me the Missouri Connections portion, which is all of the career stuff that they use for their high school portfolios and things like that, that they actually take to college with them for our state. And so a few years ago, I moved to Missouri and I was using Learning Blade in Arkansas as part of their pilot program. And when I moved to the state of Missouri, Miss Sheila and Josh tracked me down at my new school and we were able to start using Learning Blade in my new district. And I actually used it inside of my classes that I was teaching at the time, which was my computer class and my PLTW classes. So I kind of joined all that together. And then we were in need of some extra elective classes. So we decided to break away and make Learning Blade its own class with our careers. So now they get the introduction to all of the new careers that they may or may not have been introduced into in anything else, because small towns, you're only introduced to what you actually, your parents or somebody you know actually does for a living. And with this, we're introducing them to a lot more careers out there that they have options for. So it's really opening up their abilities for choosing a lifelong career at a younger age and helping them decide on those high school classes that they kind of need to have before they decide, well, this is definitely what I want to do. I've had, I guess this is your 6th that I've had Learning Blade in my classroom. We really enjoy having it as a separate class because we can get more in depth and find those connections between maybe the things that they know about now and the things they might want to learn about and those classes that they might be interested in it for our high school. It kind of pushes more of the different types of programs instead of everybody going down towards like the medical path, which we have a huge, in our district, we have a huge outpush of medical kids that go into nursing or paramedic. This is really kind of pushing stuff towards the other direction as well now. We recently got the backpack app. They were kind enough to let us pilot that as well. And so it has been fabulous. Where last year, whenever our kids went virtual in March, for Learning Blade, they didn't have this resource because many of them did not have internet at home. So some kids could use it if they had internet, the other ones couldn't. With our backpack app, it's great because they can log on for 10, 15 minutes and download their missions. They do log into their actual website first, and then we get them all signed up and all of that stuff. And then whenever we go into our Google Play Store, they download the app. Once the app is there, then they can log in with their login and they download the mission that they are assigned. I actually assign them because we use some of the career cluster inventories from Missouri Connections to see what career path they might be interested in. And I assign them a specific mission. However, I have all of the missions opened up for my students. So if they're working on something that's an assignment for class, they still have that ability to go into any other mission they would like in their free time and work on any of that they'd like to discover.
So there's 12, Sarah, there's 12 missions in Learning Blade. Each mission focuses on 5 careers and 5 technologies. So that's over 100 hours of interdisciplinary lessons. And all of them are based on reading informational text. So that's really, and we'll log in live and show you that in a second. Amy, I had a question about your first experience with Backpack. And this is so others listening also know this. You needed your district to approve it or something of that nature?
Yes, Google Play is not actually opened up for our students to have access to, which most districts don't. But our admin, through a lot of, begging, we were able to get our IT guy to open up the Google Play Store, but limit what shows up on their Google Play Store. So when my students open Google Play, anyone in the district actually has this on their Google Play Store, but no one really knows what to do with it unless you are specifically told to go and download the app. So it is the only app that shows up in our Google Play Store for our district. So we're not opening up them to get games or anything that might be inappropriate for kids for school age. It is specifically the backpack app that shows up in our Google Play Store, which is great because it gives us that access to it without releasing everything.
And then I think, Amy, if you could talk about this is really interesting, Sarah. So the backpack was designed to bridge the digital divide, right? We know that there's 1 in 4 students don't have adequate internet access at home. And so we were thinking as a company, hey, let's help students have downloadable offline ways of engaging with, rigorous content, reading informational text, and STEM career awareness. But Amy, you use it in your classroom.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that? Because I think that's we were not expecting that, but what a great actual way we've learned it's useful in this way. So tell us a little bit about how you use it in classroom settings as well.
Yes.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Sure.
I want to go back to what you were saying about your district opening that up in the app store. So we have a technology, we use a company that manages our district technology. Is they typically push out the apps to our student devices that they need. Is that something that they would have to still open from the Play Store so the students could access, or would it be possible, do you think, that the technology people could push out that app to the devices?
Yeah, they pushed
it out.
Okay.
Our district IT person actually pushed it out to them. We didn't have to turn. They were worried that they would have to, every kid turn in their Chromebooks and have everything reset.
Right. Okay.
They did not. They pushed it out and it was right there in their Play Store the next day.
Gotcha. Okay.
Great question, Sarah. Thank you.
Okay. Good deal. Okay. Now, yes, go ahead.
Tell us about your in-classroom experience with backpacking, Amy.
So I'm a firm believer in making things fair across the board and making kids not feel like they're different from other kids. So my students actually use it in the classroom every day. They only use the backpack app. So they're constantly, that data is always there and uploading to the system, because when they use it offline, they do have to reconnect to the internet for it to upload for me to see access to it. But we use it. So if kids go home and use the backpack app, you have to open that up when you get to school for that to upload. This way we use it with everybody. So a kid doesn't feel like they're different from somebody else because they don't have internet access at home. They don't actually have to tell anybody that they don't have access, because everybody's using the app. So everybody's re-uploading whatever they chose to do at home.
I think that's great. I was also thinking from a school technology standpoint. If everyone in the school is using the internet, sometimes it bogs down, it gets blocked up. But you're now having 160 students, I believe that's the right number, use Learning Blade in school, but in airplane mode. So your classroom's not hogging the internet.
Yeah, we only connect for the first 15 minutes of class. That way, if they did use it at home, it's uploading all their data, and then we disconnect our Wi-Fi every day from the system. So it's not bogging down our systems at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
which is great, because like when our map testing comes around and you have 500 kids all on a testing system at the same time, those kids that are, not testing at that specific time because they did testing early or whatever, they can still get on the system, but not be on the internet at the same time.
Okay. And that's something we've been dealing with in preparing for our state test. So, okay. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
If a student literally has zero internet at home, and we do have some of those here on our campus,
I do too.
how do they get, are the materials in the backpack still available to them, even though they can't log on at home and download something?
Yeah, mine log on in class. They download their mission in class. And then once their mission's there, they're using the same mission for 3-4 weeks at a time, because we do other things with ours.
Okay.
And so they'll use that same one for 3 to 4 weeks. So when they go home and use it at home, all of their data is there. The only thing they don't have is the videos And I always tell mine that if they're to the point where they need to watch a video, they can reconnect their Wi-Fi while they watch the video because they're live links, and then they go right back off the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So you do need to be connected to a hotspot to download it. But as soon as it's downloaded, so you could download Learning Blade from Starbucks, McDonald's,
Yeah.
Right.
school hotspot. But as Amy was saying, each mission, Sarah, is about 10 hours of curriculum.
Okay.
And so, if you download 2 missions, you've got weeks worth of work.
Okay.
Yeah. Great
Is
question.
this only available, like I know you were telling me, saying you use it with your career classes and some things like that. Is it only available for the work that's already created in this platform, or can teachers put their own materials in it to be used?
Amy, I'll let you answer that. I'm sure you know the answer.
There's so much information in there. We don't add anything to it.
Okay.
I mean, and we couldn't add anything to it. That's Josh and them's job to add stuff to it. So,
Okay.
but there's so much stuff that is built in there. And there are home lessons that you can download as a teacher that you can upload on their Google Classroom, and they can save the PDFs that they can do at home. There are Maker's Quests in there, which we love. I have a classroom that has 5 3D printers in it. So that my district was kind enough to, several of them they bought, and we got one from Learning Blade this year with our mission accomplishments. And there's all 3D printing missions and things in there that Maker's Quest that the kids can do that are fabulous. So when they're in class, they can do those things too. So you can almost have a type of flipped classroom where they're doing the activities in class and the assignments at home, because they do have offline access at home. And so then they can do those Maker's Quests that are on Tinkercad and things like that while they're in classroom, and they get an even better experience through it.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a great. Amy, would you mind addressing Sarah's role as a literacy coach, maybe talking about the informational text element of Learning Blade?
Yes, there's a lot of information in there. And something that with my kids that have those reading struggles, the great thing is it reads it to them. So it's amazing because the whole program does read it to the kids. They actually have to turn off the sound if they don't want it read to them, which is great because it encourages those kids to listen to it that need to, because a lot of them don't want to. And
Right.
so automatically on, they're like, oh, I should just listen. And so more kids will listen, which is great. And then they can read along with it. Also, like I work with my special ed teachers a little bit with this. So whenever we're reading these texts, they know kind of what the kids are reading, because they have all of those things to do as a special education teacher, that they have to monitor for different things.
Right.
And so if there's specific types of texts for real world things that they need to read, these are perfect for them to read to their teacher as well, for those things where they can say, okay, well, do they know what these words mean? So they're able to do that with my kids as well, which gives them a little extra time on their Learning Blade curriculum as well when they're reading it to their special education teacher when they're pulled out.
Yeah, and Sarah, as you can see on this page, just as an example, there's about 25 pages in this lesson. There's 425 20-page lessons, and each lesson incorporates reading about the career, reading about the technology, then answer an academic question like this, and then read a bit more and read a bit more. So even the math lessons, it's 20 pages of reading and 10 math questions. So it's really trying to incorporate reading across the disciplines for STEM career awareness, right? So,
Okay.
So I think that's a really unique approach. And we were talking today in our team meeting about teachers that use Learning Blade because it's rigorous. So Amy, what do you think about the rigor in Learning Blade?
It's great. Whenever you have 8th graders doing diving tables and doing all those calculations, it's amazing. And I love that after you answer the question, whether you get it right or wrong, you still get the explanation of why that was the answer, why that was the correct answer, or why you got it incorrect. So as a teacher, I run all 12 missions in my class pretty much all the time, because based on what their interests were is where they're on their mission. So I have all 12 running. So I don't stand in front of the class and say, okay, we're going over diving tables today. The kids are reading, they're learning about that on their own. And then they can ask further questions to me, because I've been through pretty much the entire program at this point, and I can show them in depth more of how to do things. But even if they're one of those kids that don't like to ask questions, it's still going to give them the answer and how they got that answer. It's going to explain it to them in a teacher way that they can understand, which is great. I love that aspect.
Yeah.
That actually, I'm just flipping around the slides here, but that's, Sarah, I interviewed a bunch of teachers such as Amy during COVID. And one of the answers, one of the questions to why do you like most about Learning Blade is the self-paced nature for the students. As Amy's saying, they're getting the feedback, they're getting the corrective information. It's like a teacher responding after you got a question wrong. And so, the students can work at their own pace. So I'd be curious, Amy, about that pacing. I haven't asked this of a lot of teachers, but do you have students zooming ahead as others are working more methodically because they're lower level readers or just slower readers?
Yes. So I give them a certain amount of time to complete it. And I have kids that will literally complete their entire mission in a week because they'll go home and they'll work on it if they're interested in it. So I'll have kids finish in a week, sometimes 2 weeks when they have 4 weeks to complete it, because I give them those times in class. But where they're finishing in 2 weeks, that's when I give them those Maker's Quest. I let them do that further enrichment, and then I let them send them to the 3D printers with their modifications. And then once those are done off the printer the next day, they can literally see if their modifications worked or if their modifications didn't work, what they need to fix. Yeah. So it's great because it all is built in there. So where some kids may not necessarily get to do as many Maker's Quests during the year, I try to make sure every single one of them at least get time to do one. And the great thing is each mission has each tool has like math, science, history, and English in it. So they do have all 4 of those core subjects, and it shows the connection of how all of your core subjects are all in the same in a career. They're not like, oh, hey, I'm going to go get a math job or I'm going to go get an English job. It's all the same. So it ties together that importance of why they need to learn every subject. And so then if you need to cut back on time for your special education, those super low readers, I'm able to say, okay, you're going to do 3 of the tools and you can pick which 3, and you're going to do 3 of the teammates versus all 10 of them. They're only doing 6 or however I need to adjust that for that child. And then that still allows them the time to do some of those Maker's Quests if they would like.
So bringing it full circle back to Backpack, which is, really our attempt at bridging the digital divide. What has been some of the feedback you've gotten from students that, about their experience?
My kids love it. I have one that she has 0 internet at home, and her parents don't have cell phones or anything. So there's no technology really in their home at all because they live way out in the, rural area, even further out than town. And she was always stressed out. Like she would be like, oh, I've got to hurry up. I've got to hurry up constantly in class. She would, rush through her assignments. And then we got the Backpack app, and it was like God sent her a gift from heaven, because she was like, this is amazing. She's like, I go home. She's like, I can sit. She's like, I can go to the kitchen and get a snack. I can go back to my room. I can work. And it really changed her like grades on her assignments, where she was just barely getting by because she just get done as quick as she could. She started making straight A's, which just turns around and says, hey, I can be successful at everything. Yeah. So it really does give them that encouragement and that freedom to take it a little slower if they would like. And you can set with Backpack, anybody who's used it more than, once or twice knows that you can set the amount of times that they can do an activity. So my kids, you can set it to where they can have 3 tries at the activity. So if they failed it in class because they rushed through, then they can go home and be like, okay, I can chill. It's quiet. Nobody's around me. And I can redo the whole thing and learn even more. Because let's be honest, education is not about getting an assignment done. It's about learning the curriculum and learning the concepts. So even if they take it and they do it 3 or 4 times to get it right, they're learning each time they do it, and rereading it is just increasing their reading levels anyway.
Yep.
How do you use that kind of information in terms of assigning grades? Do you have to give grades in those classes?
I do, but Learning Blade grades their assignments. Okay. So their mission, it'll tell them what percentage they have done, and it'll tell them their percentage thus far on the mission. So it starts at a 0%, and every question they get right increases their grade. So they know their grade, once they finish one tool, is never going to get worse. It's always going to increase and get better and better. So we use the Learning Blade grades. And we also, in my class, we do introduce our concepts to the class. So they'll write a report on one of the careers in there that they were really interested in. They'll go and find even more in-depth information about that career, such as how much they make, what's the growth rate, and all of that from our Missouri Connection site, so that they can do a little more research and then introduce that to the class for somebody who may not have necessarily been in that area for the class. So maybe they were medical and they were learning about, you know, how different levels of antibiotics to give the dolphin. And then they go and say, okay, well, I might want to be a microbiologist, or I might, you know, and then they can introduce that to the class where another kid may not have even thought about that. And it really does adjust. They do their career assessments more than once a year for me, because by the time they get through one Learning Blade mission, they're going, there's more out there than just what I thought there was. I might be interested in this. So it changes those career assessments after they get introduced to new things.
Yeah, that's a great comment. I mean, that's our data too, Sarah, is that students that log into Learning Blade, even for just a few hours in the school year, are transforming their mind, saying, I'm more interested in a career in STEM, in engineering, in science, and I feel more excited about those things. So I'll say this for the recording's sake, you know, anyone that has questions can email info@learningblade. We can set up demos. We can work with your team of teachers or administrators to get this launched in your school. And I really want to thank Amy for being so gracious with your time and your story. So thank you, Amy.
No problem.